the GAFE, a highly trained division within the Mexican army, and their orders were clear. Hit Ovidio's safe house in the upscale Tres Rios neighborhood of Culiacan and capture him, dead or alive.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Come at Arms channel. Okay, today we're checking out a video from Popo Medic. Now this one is about some special forces going against the Mexican cartel. Now I gotta say, I thought originally this was going to be about US special forces going against cartel, and I'm like, what did I miss? But this is pretty recent. I guess it happened in 2019. But the title says 700 Sicarios against 35 special forces dudes. So it's going to be interesting to see how this stacks up. Again, special forces, you can imagine, even if it's like Mexican special forces, they're going to be pretty well trained. They're going to be some hard dudes. I mean, Mexican special forces, I would imagine those guys probably have to go through pretty rigorous sort of screening or testing or evaluation to get to where they are to be like a trusted individual like that. But yeah, 700 cartel. I mean, they have some pretty decent money, as you guys might have seen online, just with like them having Barrett 50 cals and wild stuff like that. But yeah, again, I thought at first it was like US Special Forces, which I'm like, I mean, you know, totally possible with like what's happening now with all the troops on the border and stuff. But yeah, 700 people, that'd be like the next Mexican-American war. And I'd like for there to just be like one major Mexican-American war in our history. But yeah, let's see what happened with 700 cartel and 35 special forces. This is going to be an interesting one, but I will not discount the special forces. And again, just with, you know, a little bit of training, understanding the equipment, you can do pretty well against 700 people, you know, if you know what you're doing and you have kind of like a little bit of the advantage, which I'm not sure if they will, but let's go ahead and check it out.
Thursday, October 17th, 2019. A convoy of Mexican special forces pushed their way through the Tres Rios neighborhood of Culiacan and stormed a safe house, capturing Ovidio Guzman Lopez, the son of El Chapo.
Okay.
And what was meant to be a quick capture-kill mission quickly turned into an all-out war. As within
I remember
minutes,
seeing this footage.
Over 700 Sicarios and convoy after convoy of improvised armored vehicles surrounded the special forces team, trapping them within the safe house. And after a hellish 7-hour siege of the city, the Mexican government was left with
golly, it looks like
release Ovidio.
The invasion of Iraq. Wait, so what?
Release Ovidio. No choice. Release Ovidio, or everybody dies.
Damn, okay. It's like a friggin' terrorist negotiation real quick. I mean, dude, you see them like running all over the place like that is terrifying. Again, this is like, it looks a lot like Somalia in a weird way. The Battle of like Mogadishu, you just have people just like running all over the place. That's a lot of people, especially when you're like working out of a compound. Even if it's like a pretty big compound, that is a terrifying situation to be getting literally encircled like that. And then you need a pretty solid QRF to be able to punch through that and get everybody out. So yeah, that's a scary situation, dude. Ooh, damn, the Predator. These intros always go so hard, and the music as well.
By 2019, 28-year-old Ovidio Guzman Lopez was no longer just El Chapo's son, but one of the most powerful men in the Sinaloa cartel.
Such an early 2000s
and with his father
picture.
Serving a life sentence in the United States, Ovidio and his brothers, Los Chapitos, assumed control over key factions of the cartel's operations, which was mostly the brothers indulging in products, but ensuring his father's empire remained intact. Ovidio
what is the context for that
extended
video?
his role far beyond trafficking and became a financier, a strategist, and an enforcer, managing the cartel's cash flow, product distribution, and security infrastructure. Under his leadership, the cartel expanded its influence,
like a whole
fortified its
government
operational networks, and ensured that law enforcement could never get too close. His recruitment of young, highly armed Sicarios, coupled with his use of sophisticated technology, made him a new breed of cartel boss.
And probably some human intelligence
people. Raw firepower and encrypted communication to stay ahead of authorities. And at the same time, then President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, we'll call him President fucking Obrador, had taken a soft approach to cartel violence, shifting away from the military-driven crackdowns of previous administrations. His policy of hugs not bullets prioritized de-escalation over direct confrontation, which inadvertently allowed the Sinaloa cartel to grow even stronger. I don't know about, with less military pressure,
I don't know about inadvertently,
Los Chapitos
honestly.
cemented their control, expanded smuggling corridors, and solidified their dominance over rival factions.
Ew.
And Ovidio was especially careful in securing the cartel's infrastructure. His use of high-tech communication networks
Oh
made
my
it
God,
difficult
it's
for
like
authorities to track his
Gaza and
movements,
Hamas.
as he and his associates relied on phantom-secure encrypted mobile phones, which were modified to be untraceable, and private radio networks to block surveillance efforts. These counter-surveillance tactics gave the cartel a military-like advantage, ensuring that law enforcement was always playing catch-up. However,
I'd like to see like the intel community kind of use this as like a case study. Like, what did they do right? What did they do wrong as far as obfuscating their actions, as far as building their human intelligence sort of network to get, basically spies either on the inside of the police or, the military, to kind of give them some sort of insight as to what the plans and intentions were with targeting them, but also at the same time, how they could leverage those people to either do like diversion tactics or other sort of like maybe even like sabotage tactics to kind of give them an edge with something.
While Mexico hesitated, the DEA had already marked Ovidio as a high-value target, and U.S. authorities had been tracking his movements since the day of El Chapo's arrest, anticipating that he would step up to fill the power vacuum left by his father. And
in
the
a way,
U.S.
it is
Department
like
of
dealing
Treasury's
with
Office of
terrorism.
Foreign Assets Control formally designated Ovidio as a key lieutenant of the Sinaloa cartel under the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act, a designation that greenlit international indictments against Ovidio and his associates. But taking down Ovidio would be no simple task. The Sinaloa cartel was no longer just a criminal empire. It was a paramilitary force, an underground shadow government. And by many accounts, Obrador's administration feared that attempting to detain
that CIA
would
is
trigger
involved.
a war in Culiacan, a city where the cartel held more influence than the government itself. But despite these fears, U.S. pressure continued to mount, and the DEA had built a solid case linking Ovidio to multi-ton shipments of narcotics flooding into the United States. The indictment.
Yeah, I want to hear more about this as well, like the DEA's investigation and how they were leveraging their own human intelligence people. Because again, like the cross-border stuff, I mean, legality-wise, I imagine maybe you need to start leveraging more of the CIA capabilities. But the DEA, I mean, again, this is kind of like their bread and butter. So I really would like to hear more about how that working relationship looked and how they're able to kind of leverage everybody's authorities and capabilities to make this successful.
Was sealed, and Mexico's law enforcement signed the arrest warrant, and the plan was set in motion. But before we get into the operation, a quick word from the sponsor of today's video, Aura.
All right.
In today's world, data
what a hype
that you're broke
sponsor.
And by
Hey, again, get that money.
This highly sensitive operation was to be handled by Mexico's elite special forces unit, the GAFE, a highly trained division within the Mexican army. And
I want to do a reaction to
hit
them.
Ovidio's safe house in the upscale Tres Rios neighborhood of Culiacan and capture him, dead or alive. And on October 17th, the day of the operation, a convoy of 35 police officers and special forces
That's not a lot, though.
approached Ovidio's safe house.
Not at all.
At approximately 2:30 p.m.
I know they're trying to
And
be
upon
somewhat
arrival,
low-key.
The forces encountered gunfire, but managed to push and breach the safe house, detaining Ovidio within minutes.
Yeah,
By
I remember hearing about
2:35
that.
p.m., 700 Sinaloa cartel
The footage
gunmen
was wild.
began to mobilize, and within 30 minutes, hundreds of heavily armed sicarios flooded the streets, employing improvised armed.
I wonder how many people they had like as security in the compound, because again, 35 is a very small amount, and you can expect like this amount of people coming. So I imagine they had like a pretty decent QRF, like a quick reaction force on standby to just like cordon off the area to get these guys out of here. But again, if you're trying to just raid and then get out of there, it's gonna be tough when the city is owned by the cartel basically.
Vehicles, 50 caliber rifles, rocket launchers, and heavy machine guns, effectively besieging the city within 30 minutes of Ovidio's capture. And the special forces team within the safe house had no choice but to establish a defensive perimeter as they became effectively trapped with Ovidio.
Oh, that is so scary.
By 3:30 p.m., Culiacan is fully under siege. Cartel forces attacked military units across the city, and reinforcements attempting to reach the special forces unit holding Ovidio are blocked by roadblocks of burning vehicles or outright ambushed and forced to retreat. By 4 p.m., a
get some
full-scale war
bulldozers in
breaks
there or
out in
something.
Culiacan. Military outposts and police stations are targeted by cartel forces. Gunfights erupt across the city, trapping civilians within the chaos. And reports surface that cartel gunmen are beginning to storm military housing complexes, capturing soldiers and their families.
Really? Oh my gosh. They didn't expect like this sort of like retaliation. I mean, maybe they did, but again, like with the show of force, maybe there's not that much you can do about it. But I wonder if you had like civilians because I don't know what the dynamic is, but I wonder if you just had civilians kind of calling in saying, hey, we have some cartel people here, and the dispatchers are probably just like, yeah, there's not a whole lot you can do when you're taking in that many calls. So there's a lot of coordination you need to do if you're planning something like this, and just getting everybody on board to help with, you know, the fallouts definitely would help a lot with the success, especially with getting these
By
guys
5
out.
p.m., confirmed hostages are taken, with reports indicating that at least 8 soldiers have been abducted. Then, by 5:13 p.m., the cartel sends a message to the government: release Ovidio or executions will begin. And as 6 p.m. approached, the Mexican military becomes overwhelmed. And reports still indicate that cartel reinforcements are still arriving, and the worst is yet to come. And President Obrador is briefed on the situation. Military commanders warn that a prolonged fight will result in mass casualties, including civilians, police, and soldiers. And by 7 p.m.,
infrastructure already too.
Ovidio Guzman will be released. Reluctant, the Special Forces team obliged, cutting Ovidio loose. And
Dude, you know they're like in talks with the CIA, and the CIA is like, can you just not do that? Like, I understand the situation's pretty dire, but like, can we just throw like a hood over him and then like we'll take him or something? Yeah, I wonder how this is going to shape out.
The cartel's immediate de-escalation of hostilities allowed the Special Forces team to withdraw from the area, relatively unscathed. But the real damage was already done. Ovidio just proved to the world that he has more power than his own government. And this sense of security only empowered the cartel to deepen their influence throughout Mexico. However, the United States government gave a stern warning to Ovidio.
What a failed operation. Holy cow.
You're not more powerful than our government.
Okay, I'm about to say, like, they're just going to leave it like that? I'm surprised they didn't have more, like, U.S. people kind of
by January of
doing like a left seat, right seat.
The U.S. launched an operation that was much larger, more coordinated, and designed to be over before the cartel could even react. Dubbed Operation Mongoose Azteca, U.S. intelligence pinpointed Ovidio at a new safe house in the Jesus Maria district of Culiacan, and on January 5th, the operation was a go. Mexican Special Forces mobilized into Jesus Maria.
I wonder if you had some of the same people from the original operation doing this one. Like, that would be pretty crazy. I mean, the PTSD must have been like insane, but it'd be pretty cool to be a part of both of them.
At precisely 6 a.m., the assault team intercepted a cartel convoy associated with Los Chapitos that was patrolling the area around the safe house. Within minutes, the convoy was wiped out, and the cartel gunmen never even saw it coming. With the outer security now compromised,
got the ISR
Special Forces moved in on Ovidio's heavily fortified and guarded safe house, where the team was confronted by heavily armed sicarios prepared for an attack, leading to an intense close quarters battle. Forcing the team to clear the safe house room by room, getting down cartel enforcers at close range.
Yeah, that was wild. I remember seeing all of that. It's like, dude.
The fight lasted for several minutes.
Yeah, these guys some
the superior
suppressors.
Training and firepower of the Special Forces
so fucking loud in there.
Ovidio's team was neutralized, and before he could react, he was grabbed, subdued, and dragged out of the house in handcuffs, where the teams exfiltrated immediately, escaping before the cartel was even notified.
There you go.
And by the time they realized what had happened, Ovidio was already gone.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, that's how it should be with the raid. You can't be like dragging your feet on any of it. I wonder if we had some U.S. peeps in that
the Special
in the
Forces
stack.
team successfully captured Ovidio along with 18 of his associates. However, the raid resulted in the deaths of 10 soldiers, 19 suspected cartel members, and 1 police officer. And all hell broke loose in Sinaloa as the U.S. consulate in Hermosillo was fired upon, and fires and roadblocks once again shut down Culiacan. Even the Culiacan International Airport was temporarily closed after 2 planes, including an Aeromexico airliner and a military aircraft, were struck by gunfire. Ovidio was flown to Mexico City and then transferred to a federal social readaptation center, a maximum security prison in Juarez. Mexican Foreign Secretary Marcelo Ebrard confirmed an existing U.S. extradition request for Ovidio, though he also faced charges in
Oh,
Mexico.
they had that ready.
A federal judge placed him under a 60-day preventative detention to allow U.S. authorities to formalize their extradition.
The U.S. is like,
petition.
please just
And by
let us
September
deal with this.
15th of 2023, Ovidio was extradited to the United States to face drug trafficking charges and arraigned in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois, where he pleaded not guilty.
Ravi El Chapo's son Ovidio put on a
Good luck with
private
that one.
plane with a one-way ticket to Chicago. This 33-year-old son of the Sinaloa cartel kingpin tonight at the federal lockup in downtown Chicago.
I wonder how. It must have been tough for that indictment. I mean, maybe not. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff, but even still, to go after him and to connect him, sure, there's a lot of stuff, but oh damn, February 27th. Okay, well, damn, I want to see what happened with that. But yeah, to actually connect it with him specifically and, you know, place those charges on him, yeah, I bet there was a lot of preparation for that one. I mean, years, understandably, for sure. Like, that's a pretty big deal. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be going up against somebody that big, that important, especially just like in your country, not like a, you know, a massive country, but for somebody who has that much kind of pull and just the amount of publicity, there's going to be insane pushback. Not even just like in the local area, just all over the place. Everybody who has kind of connections, who's trying to like ensure that this, you know, this hierarchy stays in place to kind of keep them employed, for lack of a better term. There's going to be a lot of people kind of reacting to this. So in a way, I mean, just like we have these operations and raids to take out these key leaders in terrorist organizations, you have to handle that, you know, the same, if not more, because this has a lot of political ramifications as well, especially with like how much overlap they have like with the government and stuff. So yeah, the first operation, I'm not sure. I'd like to do more research as to the planning for that one. But it didn't seem like they kind of handled that very well. And then when the U.S. was getting involved, I'm sure they took a lot of their experiences from, you know, those raids with like the Rangers and Green Berets and stuff and kind of, you know, gave that over to them. If not, just having some people actually integrated into the teams, into like the planning and whatnot to make sure that it was successful. Because obviously the U.S. also had a lot to lose if this one went badly as well. But definitely an interesting topic. I mean, similar, again, in a lot of ways to just like general like terrorism, military operations against, you know, these terrorist organizations, counterinsurgency kind of stuff. But just this close, like on the U.S. border, that's not something that happens too much. So for us to be like, you know, dipping our hand in operations like that, then again, it's kind of interesting to see that happening, knowing that it's so close. And yeah, I'd like to learn a little bit more as to what our involvement actually looked like. But yeah, I mean, must have been a pretty intense operation, especially the second time around. I imagine they probably had some pretty decent security just set up after, you know, the first time it had happened, and they learned from that as well. But I'd like to hear y'all's perspective, mostly on like the cooperation with the U.S. and Mexican governments, and also just like the ramifications of, you know, doing something like this. The first attempt, and then, you know, everything happening, and then just obviously it's a pretty big player. They wanted to make sure that they were able to take him down. So doing it again, even different ramifications. So I'd like to hear y'all's perspective on kind of what that might look like, or what you think they could have done a little bit better, or just other things that they should have coordinated the first time, even the second time, to make sure that this hadn't happened or just, you know, gone poorly like it did the first time. Because me thinking from my perspective, I know you're trying to keep things close hold, like a secret military operation, but there's a lot of government agencies that need to be kind of involved with this sort of planning and just the retaliation. Again, the local governments, even just like the economy is going to take a big hit. The civilian infrastructure is going to take, you know, some targeting. There's going to be a lot of things happening, like the roadblocks. There's a lot of things, a lot of precursors that people could have kind of like picked up on and maybe just set some things in place, which they might have, and they didn't really talk about it. But yeah, there's a lot of things to consider. So yeah, my brain's just kind of bouncing around to a bunch of people that should have been somewhat informed of something at least. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this video. Again, Popomatic knocked it out of the park. Very, very cool vibe with the video, just how he packages everything. And just, again, the narration is always like a 10 out of 10. Very well done. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. And of course, I'll put the original video down in the description so you guys can go and check out Popomatic's video. But that is it for this one. I will see y'all in the next one.